Maya and Eli thought discovering an old cartoon tape would be fun. But when the characters in the drawing started staring back at them, they realized some cartoons are alive and hungry. I always loved cartoons. Even as a kid, I would spend hours glued to the screen, captivated by the bright colors, the exaggerated movements, and the endless laughter that seemed to echo from another, happier world. They made everything feel safe, like there was a place where nothing could hurt you, where the worst problems disappeared in a puff of smoke or a silly pratfall. As an adult, I still found comfort in them. I would sit under my blankets late at night, letting the cheerful voices drown out the hum of the city outside. But last night, that sense of safety shattered. It began with a discovery. I was wandering through a second-hand store, the kind filled with dusty shelves and forgotten objects, when I spotted it tucked in a corner. A small VHS tape, yellowed with age, its label handwritten in jagged letters. For you. No title, no date, nothing. Something about it made my heart skip. It was probably just an old cartoon from the 1980s, abandoned and forgotten, but I couldn't resist. I bought it. Something about the words felt personal, like it had been waiting for me. Back at my apartment, I dusted off my old VHS player and inserted the tape. The screen flickered, and a cartoon began to play. At first, it looked normal. Colors bright, music cheerful, characters bouncing across the screen. But soon, I noticed something was wrong. The movements were jerky, unnatural, almost like the frames were skipping in a strange rhythm that made my stomach twist. And the characters. Their eyes were too large, too glossy, reflecting light in a way that felt alive. I laughed nervously, telling myself it was just old animation, a glitch from time, maybe even my imagination. Then they looked at me. Their tiny drawn eyes, painted on, yet somehow more than paint, fixed directly on mine. My skin prickled. My chest tightened. I wanted to look away, to turn off the TV, but something held me in place. The colors began to shift unnaturally, darker tones creeping into the background, and a high-pitched humming began to echo from the speakers. It wasn't part of the cartoon, I realized. It was something else, soft and persistent, like a whisper just on the edge of hearing. Then a hand appeared, thin, pale, rubbery, stretching out from the screen. I froze. It hovered for a moment, suspended in the air between the cartoon world and mine, and I could swear I felt a pulse of cold air radiate from it. The hum grew louder, resonating through my chest, and the hand twitched slightly as if testing me. My mind screamed at me to move, to run, but my body refused. The cartoon ended abruptly, and the screen went black. I thought I would feel relief, but the last image burned itself into my vision, a grotesque smile, far too wide, far too sharp, lingering even in the darkness. The room felt heavier after that, like the shadows were settling in, waiting. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the hand, I felt the stare, and I knew, deep down, that something had followed me out of the screen. Something was watching, just beyond sight, waiting for the next move. I tried to convince myself it was just my imagination. After all, the tape was old, the images distorted, and maybe I was just overtired. But the next morning, the first undeniable proof of something wrong hit me like a punch. I noticed scratches on my bedroom wall, deep, jagged lines that hadn't been there before. They looked almost clawed, uneven and frantic, yet precise in a way that made my stomach twist. I live alone, no pets, no one else with access to my apartment. And yet, the marks were there, fresh and cruel, etched into the wall like a warning. I avoided the tape for days. I kept myself busy, forcing routines and work to drown out the memory of the cartoon, the smile, the hand. But no matter what I did, I felt it, watching, waiting. Shadows moved unnaturally at the edges of my vision, twitching just out of focus. Every time I turned to confront them, nothing was there, but the feeling remained, something aware, something patient, lingering just beyond the periphery. Last night, the impossible happened. My TV turned on by itself. I froze before the glowing screen, heart hammering. The tape was inside, already playing, though I hadn't touched it. The cartoon appeared again, warped and twitching, brighter somehow, more alive, and then I saw it, my reflection. At first, I thought it was mine, the tired, pale reflection of myself in the darkened screen, but it moved differently. Its head tilted in a way I hadn't, its eyes glinting black and hollow, staring through me. I couldn't tear my gaze away. The reflection smiled, wide and jagged, a cruel mimicry of the cartoon's grin. A cold shiver ran through me, and I realized the room had changed subtly. Shadows stretched longer, darker, curling into corners where light didn't reach. The air felt thick, heavy, vibrating with the same high-pitched hum from the tape. It wasn't coming from the speakers anymore. It was everywhere, surrounding me, seeping into my chest and throat, pressing me down. Then came the movement. Something soft, almost imperceptible, brushing against my shoulder. I wanted to scream, but my voice was gone. The reflection on the screen lifted its hand, not in mimicry, but as if to beckon me. And in that moment, I felt it, an awareness in the darkness, an intelligence that shouldn't exist in a cartoon. It wasn't just a drawing, it was something alive, something hungry, and it knew I could see it. When the tape finally ended, I expected relief. The screen went black, and the room returned to its normal color and weight. But the reflection didn't disappear. It remained in the TV, sitting in darkness, smiling. And even when I turned the TV off, I felt the eyes, always watching, always patient. Sleep didn't come. Every creak of the building, every whisper of wind outside my window felt like a promise. I could feel it lingering in the corners, in the air, waiting for the moment I let my guard down. And when I finally closed my eyes, I saw the hand again, thin and rubbery, stretching out from the screen. Not for the cartoon this time. For me. I couldn't live with the tape in the apartment anymore. I decided to destroy it. I tried everything. I snapped the plastic casing, tore the ribbon film out with shaking hands, stomped on it until my heel hurt. Then I gathered the shredded pieces and dumped them in the trash outside. My hands were still trembling when I went back inside. For the first time in days, I felt a hint of control. A false one, I would soon learn. The next morning, the tape was on my desk, whole, clean, untouched. The same handwritten label stared back at me. For you. My chest tightened until breathing felt like swallowing glass. I backed away from the desk, shaking my head like denial could erase what I was seeing. I didn't touch it. I refused. I spent the day in silence, avoiding the room, avoiding my own reflection, afraid of what I might see if I looked too long. As night fell, the atmosphere inside the apartment changed again. The air grew thick and stale, like a place that had been sealed shut for years. There was a faint ringing in my ears like a tone only I could hear, building pressure behind my eyes until I felt sick. I tried to distract myself, but something on the coffee table stopped me cold. A sketchbook. I don't own a sketchbook. Yet there it was, worn and slightly open as if it had been used recently. My fingers hesitated, then flipped through the pages. My stomach lurched. Each page was filled with drawings, those same cartoon characters, but distorted, elongated, with those dreadful shiny eyes and violent grins. Page after page, their expressions grew more predatory, more human. Some drawings showed them crawling out of screens, others standing behind what looked like the silhouette of a person sitting on a couch, a silhouette that looked horribly like me. The final page wasn't a drawing. It was text, written in jagged strokes that looked like they were carved rather than drawn. You belong to us now. The letters seemed to pulse on the page, dark and wet-looking, like fresh ink or something far worse. I dropped the book. The sound it made when it hit the floor echoed unnaturally long as if the room swallowed it. The lights flickered. From the corner of the room came a faint giggle, light, playful, cartoonish, but layered with something broken beneath it. The sound didn't echo from a speaker. It came from the dark. The hair on my arms rose. I backed away slowly, but the giggling didn't stop. It grew louder, overlapping with itself like dozens of voices laughing inside the walls, behind the furniture, beneath the floor. Then, without touching it, the VHS player powered on with a hard, mechanical click. The tape slid inside by itself, and as the TV screen brightened with static, I realized something horrifying. The cartoon didn't need to wait for me to press play anymore. It could come on its own, and it wanted to. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. Every shadow in the apartment seemed to breathe, shifting slightly whenever I dared to look. The walls themselves felt alive, rippling under the dim light of the street lamps outside. The air was thick, heavy, filled with the faint, constant hum I had started to associate with the tape. Every creak of the building, every distant siren sounded amplified, like the apartment was listening, waiting, alive. I tried to leave. I tried to go anywhere to escape this nightmare. But when I reached the front door, my hand froze on the handle. The metal was cold, unnaturally cold, like touching something buried deep underground. I turned the knob, yanking with every ounce of strength, but the door didn't budge. It twisted, heavy and resistant, as though something on the other side refused to let me leave. My panic climbed higher. The windows were the same. Reflections that weren't quite mine stared back, grinning from inside the glass, preventing me from seeing anything outside. Then it started. Soft at first, just a touch against my shoulder, barely there. But it grew. Cold and rubbery, sliding down my arm, up my back, across my neck. I couldn't look. I didn't want to see what it was, but I could feel its presence. It was testing me, patient and deliberate, moving through my apartment as though it belonged there. The air filled with a sound I cannot describe. Part static, part laughter, vibrating deep inside my chest. It surrounded me, suffocating, omnipresent. I dared to glance down. The floor beneath me was no longer wood. It had become a living cartoon landscape, bright and warped, stretching outward impossibly far. The edges bending like reality itself had melted. The walls pulsed with color and movement, and the shadows formed shapes, tiny, jerking figures that scuttled along the corners of my vision. In the distance, familiar shapes waved at me. The characters from the tape were there, grotesque and alive, grinning with those impossibly wide mouths. I stumbled backward, heart hammering. My apartment had transformed into the cartoon itself. Every surface seemed to ripple with life, threatening to swallow me. The familiar safety of my home was gone. The lights flickered, and I could hear giggles, whispers, and the high-pitched hum combining into one endless, suffocating noise. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but where could I go? The door would not open. The windows were mirrors. And the cartoon, alive, patient, hungry, watched my every move. I realized, in that moment of pure terror, that this was no longer a cartoon on a screen. It was here, inside the apartment, inside me. Its presence was in the shadows, in the air, in the very walls. It was waiting, watching, and I was trapped in a world that should not exist. A world where drawn figures could crawl out of paper, glass, and light to claim their prey. And then I saw them all, the tiny, jerking characters, hundreds of them, moving along the ceiling and walls, converging toward me. Their black, hollow eyes reflected my panic perfectly. And in the distance, a single figure waved, the one with the twisted, unnatural smile, beckoning me forward, promising me something I didn't want but could not resist. I thought if I left the apartment, I could break whatever hold it had on me. I didn't care how, I just needed distance. I waited until the cartoon world seemed to flicker back into ordinary walls, until the colors drained again and the apartment returned to something resembling normal. I grabbed my keys, fled to my car, and drove without direction for hours. I didn't look back once. I passed highways, empty roads, forests, gas stations that looked abandoned, anything to convince myself I was getting farther from it. But the feeling didn't leave. It rode with me, like a cold breath on the back of my neck. By dawn, I checked into a cheap motel miles from home. A lifeless room, brown carpet, static air, flickering bathroom light. Yet even here, I didn't feel alone. I left the television unplugged, shoved the motel mirror under a towel, and sat on the bed listening to the hum of the air conditioner. I tried to sleep, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw it. The floor stretching into cartoon colors again, the hand reaching out, the smile that never faded. I decided to document everything. I set my phone on the nightstand and recorded myself sleeping. I needed proof, something to convince myself I wasn't slipping into insanity. When morning came, I watched the footage. What I saw made my blood turn to ice. At first, it was just me, asleep. Then, at 3:14 a.m., something emerged from the darkness in the corner. It wasn't human. It was drawn. Shaky lines, warped proportions, the same glossy black eyes from the cartoon. A cartoon version of me. It stood there, head tilted, smiling. Behind it, dozens more shapes crept from the walls, tiny drawn figures crawling across the floor, ceiling, and bedposts, gathering around the bed like spectators. In the recording, the drawn version of me lifted a hand and waved slowly, directly at the camera. Then the static washed over the footage, and the screen went black. I dropped the phone. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. The room felt smaller, tighter, like the walls were inching closer. My breath came in short, shallow bursts. And then I saw it, on the bedside table, right next to me, where it had not been before. The VHS tape, whole, clean, fresh label, for you. I didn't bring it here. I didn't carry it with me. But it followed. It always follows. Sometimes, when I blink now, reality flickers. The motel walls bend like animation cells. The bed warps at the edges. The air fills with that faint hum, like a prelude to a scene starting. I see movement in the reflection of the unplugged TV, shadows waiting for the next frame to load. I know now it doesn't matter where I go. The cartoon is not inside the tape. The tape was only the doorway. It is inside the world now. Inside reflections, inside shadows, inside whatever cracks exist between what is real and what is drawn. And sometimes when I catch my reflection unexpectedly, it isn't me looking back anymore. It is smiling. It is waiting. And I don't think it will stay behind the glass much longer.